morning, folks. It's John Pettipas. Now, 11 minutes past 8 o'clock in the morning is Sunday morning. In a rush here, get ready for church. It is going to be briefest I can be today, as possible. The 21st day of November, 2021. I watch the BBC World News a couple of times a day out of England. Not the CBC, the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation. Some of the stuff kind of lefty, but they do excellent documentaries. They did a video yesterday based on documentary I'd seen in Nuremberg. Actually, yesterday, I didn't realize at the time, was this 20th of November was the 76th anniversary of the start of the Nuremberg war trials. Anyway, back to the BBC World News, which I got just at 6 o'clock this morning, our time, which is 11 o'clock British time. England. They have not had a vaccine mandate. No! There is no vaccine mandate in England. And it's essentially not in the United States. The president keeps, Sleepy Joe, keeps trying to impose a national one, but because state rights, we had a war over states' rights, and so federal government doesn't tread on us they know not to tread on us or something will happen. States have much more powers, much less of a dictatorship to what you have, say, in a country like Canada. Okay? So anyway, in fact, Lester B. Pearson famously said that a Canadian Prime Minister with a majority is the closest thing you'll see to a dictatorship and a democracy, so-called. I'm going to repeat that. Lester B. Pearson, the Prime Minister between John Diefenbaker and Pierre Elliott Trudeau the first, famously said a Canadian Prime Minister with a majority in Parliament, the Canadian House of Commons, is the closest thing you'll see to a dictator in a democracy. So we have a totally different system of government in the United States of America. You have to have consensus, people across party lines, and so on, and it takes a bit longer to get stuff done, but you don't get garbage shoved down your throat. That's how the founding fathers started the country, and we're going to celebrate our 250th anniversary in 4 more years from the 1st of January on the 4th of July 2026. So I think the country's systems worked out pretty well. Anyway, back to England. England, there is no vaccine mandate. The interview with a senior official said we're reluctant to do that because it causes people to push back. Interestingly, we've been shoved, this shit's been shoved down our throat so much that jerk, a piece of shit, speaking of shit from a piece of shit, Timothy Houston. Oh, we got to get 85% to get the critical mass, blah, 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 85, 90%. In England, you hear that federally, you hear it everywhere, it's 80% plus. England now, I watched a business show, Brian Sullivan, last week one morning. He was in London, England. Now, London, England's a very small little town. I suppose you know London's such a small town. Actually, London, England has so many people. Take a glass of water, average glass of water, it's interesting before your Sunday morning breakfast, is the average glass of water has gone through somebody's bladder 11 times. So what is that? They're giving you pee? No, they're not giving you pee. It goes through the sewer plant and the solids are taken out. And goes through rock, gravel, sand, chlorination, aeration, whatever, and it goes through the system. And you just, 10, 11 million people in a small area, 10 million plus, one of the biggest cities in the world. You just not, the water is recycled, literally. So anyway, I'm being sarcastic. London, England is one of the most densely populated areas on the face of God's earth. We rival that in Mexico City, which wouldn't have the height that Tokyo is. I would say London, England, Tokyo, probably New York City would be the top 3 densely populated cities on the face of God's earth, the globe of the world. Now, anyway, only 2/3 of the British people, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England are vaccinated. 1/3 are not. Yet Brian Sullivan said on CNBC, it feels wonderful. The kid, no mask, the people are going in restaurants, you go to theatre in the evening when he's not recording. He was over there for a week covering that COP conference. Edinburgh, and Glasgow. Anyway, going to save the world. That's a story for another day. They take, anyway, 1/3 of the British people aren't vaccinated. Now, last night, overnight, this is noon hour, British noon hour Europe time. There was riots in Holland, also known as Netherlands, riots in Vienna, Austria, home of Adolf Hitler, and riots in Germany. So, Netherlands, Holland, Austria, Germany. England, no riots. Now, it's a whole thing of these mandates. It's all about control. For years, this guy used to come in, buy bags of potatoes, 50-pound bags of potatoes, always stressing a teacher. No, I'm not a teacher. He's coming at different times of the day. He'd be going sometimes to Cape Breton, sometimes coming off Cape Breton. Turns out he was a probation officer. And there was some sex scandals on the go at the time. He was discussing this specific case, but he said, it's all about control. It's all about control. Okay? What goes in the mind of a sex abuser? It's all about control. Now, that was a comment this guy made, who was, at that time I was in 20s, he'd be a middle-aged guy. Now I think he's actually just retired. He'd be in his probably mid-60s now. So anyway, he knew a lot of stuff. He was an interesting guy to speak to. So the same with these vaccine mandates. It's all about control. All about control. No. You can't have that. No. Down at Hardwishy, Johnny Marie can't have their concert. Don't go there. Ladies Auxiliary raised money for the Volunteer Fire Department. No bingo. Or card play, older people, not so old people getting together, having their card plays on whatever night, some places Sunday afternoon, some places Saturday afternoon, some places Thursday night, whatever. No. Bad for your health, card play. No. It goes back to control, this ego. And you get the likes of Tim Houston or Justin Trudeau, ego. Interesting, one more little point, and I said it's going to be brief, I'm going to wrap this up. In England, I watch the BBC News often enough. I've never seen an expert in television. There is no Anthony Fauci in England. How come they're not all dead? There's no Tam in England. There's no Dr. Bobby Strange in England. And Irish guy, the English were brutal to the Irish in Ireland and the Catholics in Ireland, the nation of Ireland. So there's no love lost between the Irish people and the British for good reason. I'm Acadian and American. Half Acadian, half American. The American side is part French too. So 3/4 French for me, and if you look at the lineage and the grandparents on both sides. Now, that said, no love lost between Acadians and British, English. But by God, you got to admire rule Britannia. You got to admire the British that stood up under Sir Winston Churchill to hold Hitler off. Had England ever fallen, had Hitler been in the Royal Air Force under Winston Churchill's leadership, had England ever fallen, D-Day, an invasion of Normandy, would never have been possible. You just couldn't do it from ships and aircraft carriers they had in the 40s. And you had to have a land base to come across the English Channel. So you got to, the world as we know would be different. And I'm going to make one more little comment. The reason why Brian Sullivan was England, because London is the world's financial headquarters for the Far East and that side of the ocean. New York, without question, is the world's financial headquarters, period. But London would be a close second, okay, for Africa, the Far East, and Europe, and a very prominent, successful guy in finance and of Irish ancestry, very experienced guy in Toronto, made a comment. John, this was breakfast that goes on. He made a comment that the world needs England, Europe needs England more than London needs Europe. And that's been proven true. That's been proven true. Okay, so with that, England is doing fine, and the Prime Minister of Britain, Great Britain, his name is Boris Johnson, said I was saying about 6 minutes ago, look, they're just going to have to learn to live with this. And interestingly, you talk about infections. Very few people that get the damn biological germ warfare from communist China die. The mortality rate is extremely low. With that, I got to go. I'm not saying it's not serious, but it's extremely low. And I will be making a video on a pandemic, which nobody's talking about, which is almost fatal. Almost always fatal, and nobody has the guts to talk about it, but coming days I'll talk about it. With that, I gotta go. Thank you. All the best. Good breakfast yourself. All the best. God bless. Thank you.